Please stand. Gentlemen, remove your hats for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Marshall,
Here.
Powell,
Here.
and Moore.
Present.
All present.
All right. Good evening. Once again, I would like to thank everyone for attending this evening's meeting of the Muncie City Council Finance Committee. This meeting is open to the public and scheduled through the clerk's office, with the public notice provided to the media as well as posted in the City Hall in compliance with Indiana's open door law. The purpose of this meeting this evening is so that the Finance Committee can receive financial data from the administration and other service providers in our community regarding the Muncie Fire Department Basic Life Support Program. I believe having this information is essential to the City Council to have in order for the body to make the best financial decisions on behalf of the citizens of Muncie in the upcoming budget season. For that reason, the committee members themselves will be posing questions to the city officials and other service providers. This will allow for the most productive and efficient receipt of this information. I would like to again thank people for submitting questions and thank my fellow council persons for submitting questions this evening. Having said that, it is essential that this process be open to the public and interested parties, because public comment on this topic should be heard by the entire council rather than just the committee. There will be an opportunity for public comment and discussion at a regular city council meeting if and when a piece of legislation pertaining to this is introduced. Lastly, the committee requests those in the auditorium today treat each other with civility. The purpose of the meeting today is to gather data, not to promote one service over the other. We'll go ahead and get started. Is Mr. Niemeyer present? Okay. Not yet. We will give him a little time.
Mr. Quirk's approaching.
Evening, John Quirk, one of the city attorneys, 117 East Main Street. Mr. Niemeyer is not here at this particular time, but he did give me, you had given him questions, and he has the written responses that I can read to the record if you'd like to hear those.
You're authorized to speak on behalf of Mr. Niemeyer?
I'm authorized to read these answers, yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. First question for Mr. Niemeyer is, where do you believe we are in regards to the city's financial standing?
Well, I believe the question was, where do you believe we are with regard to the city's financial solubility? His answer from Mr. Niemeyer is, solubility is not a financial term, nor is it an accounting term. It's a chemistry term referring to the process of a solid dissolving in a liquid. So I'm unsure of what word you're attempting to use. If you're asking about solvency, the city's assets do exceed their liabilities. So yes, the city is solvent. If the city was insolvent, that would be a widely known fact, given that the synonym for insolvency is bankruptcy, and the city is far from that. The degree to which the city is solvent, that is, the amount of which the assets exceed liabilities, is calculated by a long and expensive inventory of all assets and liabilities, which hasn't been done to my knowledge. If you are asking about sustainability, then that's a matter of choice. The council has control over the budget and should align spending with revenues. That is the end of his answer.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Can you explain for Mr. Niemeyer what is happening to the beginning operating balance each year?
I believe the question was, could you explain what is happening in our beginning operating balance each year and why? Mr. Niemeyer's answer, written response, is the beginning balance of the general fund has increased in 3 of the last 8 years and decreased in 5 years. The actual numbers from 2012 to 2019 in millions are 7.2, 8, 9.5, 8.5, 5, 3.5, 4.4, and 3.2. So it could be said that the overall trend is downward, even though there was almost $1 million increase from 2017 to 2018. The reason why it varies is a question whose answer that should be obvious to not only every council member, but to any person asked. This would be analogous to asking the average person why their checking account balance is decreasing and has the exact same answer. You're spending more than you're receiving. The main reason for this, since my time as controller in 2017, is the increase in employee salaries, which account for about half the changes. The only money that can be spent from the funds, other than non-reverting funds, such as the 104 Center Township Fire Protection Fund, is the money approved by the council either within the adopted budget or through an additional appropriation. That is the extent of his answer for number 2.
Number 3, what is the Department of Local Government and Finance Form 1782?
Form 17, Mr. Niemeyer's response is, Form 1782 sets out by fund the financial information proposed by the taxing unit. It includes proposed revenue, levy, and budget adjustments, and results from the application of the final assessed values as certified by the county auditor. Basically, it's a tally sheet for your funds. That's the extent of his answer for number 3.
Okay, so then will you explain the findings of the DLGF 1782 fund for 2019? Please?
I believe the question is, will you explain what the findings of the DLGF 1782 for 2019 indicate? His response is, the 1782 form for 2019 shows all budgets other than the rainy day fund were approved for the submitted amounts. The $538,318 balance in the rainy day fund can be spent with an additional appropriation done by the council. That's the extent of his answer for number 4.
Can you answer a follow-up question for that?
We can give it a shot and see.
So when it says that the budget has been decreased by projected revenues are insufficient to fund the adopted budget for the rainy day fund, could you explain that further?
I cannot, but I can refer that to Mr. Niemeyer and get an
Thank
answer
you.
for you as soon as
Could
possible.
you also, let's see, could you explain under the general fund, when it says budget is approved for displayed amount, but the rate is reduced to remain within the statutory levy limitation? Can you explain that, sir?
I cannot, but I can get that answer for you. If you can get those questions to me in writing, as we had indicated, we'd requested earlier last week, then I can get those answers for you, yes.
Absolutely, but I want to remind you that I said that any answers could trigger follow-up questions.
I know, I just want to make sure I'm getting the question correct. If I write it down, I may write it down wrong, and I want to make sure it's accurate so that he can get the right answer for you.
And these are off the cuff? These are just in response to what you have reported from
That's
Mr.
fine. If you
Niemeyer?
can just get them in writing, then I can get them, and then there won't be any miscommunication.
Absolutely. Let's see. Let me go. I had one more then from what you were saying. Okay. We will continue. I'll come back to that. So the findings under the 17 notice states that,
Is this going to be a question, or is this a statement? I was under the impression that we're here to answer questions, not listen to
no,
statements.
actually, we invited Mr. Niemeyer here to answer questions, but unfortunately, he's not here, so.
Right, and so I asked if you could get those answers, or those questions to me in writing, then I can get the answers. But other than
He
that, I
had
don't.
questions in writing.
Right, the 11 questions that you gave him last week.
Okay.
Is that correct?
So, let's go on.
I mean, is that correct or not correct?
That you've had these questions? Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So we will go on to, can our general fund afford to subsidize fire-based EMS if the expenses are greater than the revenues and the proceeds from the Center Township Fund 104?
And then you have in parentheses, or in parentheses, I'm sorry, $400,000 a year.
I do.
The answer that Mr. Niemeyer provided is that the $400,000 figure is only the amount paid by Center Township to the city for fire protection. Any and all revenue generated by the fire-based EMS is in addition to the $400,000. As to whether the general fund can pay the fire-based EMS expenses exceeding the fire-based EMS revenues would depend on the extent of the shortfall, as well as the extent to which the council allows money to be, which allows money spent to exceed revenue received. If revenues are $3 million and expenses are $3,020,000, and yes, the general fund can cover. Any greater amounts would be subject to the willingness to stay within the budget amounts. That is the extent of his answer with regard to number 5.
Will we be getting a copy of his answers in writing?
I can give you that, yes.
Thank you. I would like for you to read that first sentence of his response, though, again.
The $400,000,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I'm just going to say, I'm going to stop you when I hear.
The $400,000 figure is only amount paid by Center Township to the city for fire protection.
Stop right there. What's it paid for?
For fire protection?
Okay. How much money do we currently receive in pilot payments for IU Health and BMU?
His response is, in 2019, IU Health is $50,000 per year. BSU, which is, I'm assuming is Ball State University, is slightly over $266,000.
Okay, and the next question, where are those annual payments deposited?
The response is the payments are deposited in the general fund into line items specifically for this revenue.
Okay. Is that being used elsewhere in the budget? That money that's being deposited into
There's,
the general fund?
Your Honor.
I'm sorry, I was going to, okay, but if let's see, if it is being used elsewhere in the budget, if it were suddenly used to subsidize MFD BLS, would that affect the service delivery of other departments?
his response is, when building a budget, all anticipated revenues and all anticipated expenses are considered. The pilot payments are anticipated revenue and are used to pay some of the expenses incurred during this year by whatever, incurred during that year by whatever department. So yes, the pilot money is being used elsewhere within the general fund, but it is not individually tracked. It doesn't have to because it's not required to be spent on on anything specific. And since the budget is still balancing the revenues with expenses, or at least coming very close to balancing, the pilot money has already been spoken for and counted as revenue source used to pay general funds expenses. If it's used for anything else, that revenue will have to be replaced or that much expense not incurred. That is the extent of his answer.
Follow-up question, and I'm not sure if you'll be able to answer this or not. He mentioned that it was a balanced budget. What can you speak to as moving the LOIT that was not appropriated, the unappropriated LOIT, into the budget so that the budget would be balanced? Can you speak to that?
No, I cannot, but I can answer for you.
Okay,
If you can get that to me, please.
I will.
Thank you.
What is the current range in daily overtime for a firefighter?
His response is, per the latest employee pay rate report, $33.99 to $43.04.
That's per hour? I'm sorry, could you repeat that, sir?
Per the latest employee pay rate report, $33.99 to $43.04.
And that would be per hour for a 24-hour shift?
It does not state that, but I would assume that, but I would, I guess, ask him for clarification.
Okay. Do you know the current balance of Fund 104?
His response is $539,318.77.
I suppose my question for that, did you have a question?
No, go ahead.
Why is the balance $500,000? Council only appropriated $400,000 this year, so there should be significantly more.
I'm not sure. We can get an answer for you, though. If you provide that to me, we can get it from Kevin.
Were payments made out of that account of unappropriated money?
Once again, I don't have that information. I can get that information from you if you provide a question for me.
Interesting. What is the
Thank you.
current balance of Fund 105?
It
That's otherwise known
is,
as LOIT.
I'm sorry, what?
It's otherwise known as the LOIT.
It is $1,265,856.71. Do I need to repeat that? I kind of stumbled on it. Did you get it?
Go ahead, one more time.
$1,265,856.71.
All right, and I have a follow-up question with that. I'm not sure if you'll be able to answer that one, just because I think it might be more appropriate for Mr. Niemeyer, but I wanted to ask, the LOIT is higher, and I was curious because in the general fund budget for the Muncie Fire Department, the fire department has spent, as of May the 31st, 489% of their perf line item in the general fund. And yet in the LOIT, they've spent 0%. And I'm not sure why they're spending the money out of the general fund several hundred times over and not tapping the money that we've appropriated for LOIT, for a perf in the LOIT.
Certainly. If you can get that long question in writing, so I know there's quite a bit to it, so I don't want to mess any of it up. You can get it to me in writing, I can get it to Kevin, we can get you an answer.
Absolutely, I will do that. Denise, do you have any questions for Mr. Quirk? Well, for Mr. Niemeyer, for Mr. Quirk?
These were questions submitted, where did I put them? By the public.
Do you know when those were submitted?
I'm sorry?
Do you know when those were submitted?
We had these the other night because I've made marks on them.
Okay, is there any particular reason that Mr. Niemeyer didn't have a copy of that so he could provide answers?
Because we did not get them finalized until Friday. And I can put them with
Okay,
Ms. Powell's
that's fine.
request, if that's what you
What
would
I'm getting at is
prefer.
that if we had him today, or Friday, he could have possibly
I
answered them over the weekend
I
and provided answers.
Okay, no problem. I will add those to her list.
Thank you.
We will add ones from there. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you.
Next, we will ask Mr. Rogers to come up, please, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening. Wanted to start off with just offering the condolences of the committee for the loss of your paramedic.
Thank you.
Wesley Isaacs.
Oh, no,
And again, this, asking you here today is just to gather information. It's not to promote one service over the other, so I'm going to ask you to keep that in mind as you answer.
Sure.
Please. Thank you.
that's fine.
All right. First question. Does Delaware County EMS rely on other ambulance companies for mutual aid?
The answer to that's yes. We also subsidize those companies as well, Albany, Eaton, and Daleville. So when we are beyond our resources, they will come in and help us, so yes.
Okay. And does that create a cost if you have to use mutual aid?
Not specifically. We subsidize them, so Albany gets $30,000 a year, Eaton gets $9,000 a year, and up until Daleville became a fire territory, they also got $9,000 a year. They also, each service has received from the commissioners 2 ambulances to run with their service. So on top of the
So you,
yearly stipend, they also get trucks.
okay, so you really couldn't tell by, is that a contract that you have that you've signed, or and looking forward, if we were to do mutual aid, do you do those payments per run, or?
No, so the truck fund has changed several times over the years. Each participating agency used to put like $3 or $7 or $9, and I don't remember exactly what, into a kitty essentially for each one of those runs, and then we would buy trucks and everybody participated, put it into this ambulance fund, and then we would buy trucks, and it kind of went round robin. Well, that changed in 14, I believe, and when we went to the intercept fees. So what happens is 100% of the intercept fees go into the truck fund, and then we purchase vehicles out of the truck fund.
Okay, and,
But as to speak to if there's a contract, it's between the jurisdictions and the commissioners. It's not part of my budget.
Okay.
So it's budgeted through the commissioner's office. It is an EMS expense, but we don't include it in our budget.
all right, thank you. Of the Delaware County EMS income, what % is allowable Medicare?
Are you talking, when you say that, do you mean the payer mix that the gentleman from Elkhart was talking about?
Yes, and then what's referenced in the GIS study that we were given by the Muncie Fire Department.
Okay, all right, I'm with you.
And I apologize if I'm
That's
muddling
okay.
through this.
It's vernacular, it's all.
It is, thank
I
you.
got it.
So I learned, so.
Can I have the 16 book? No, I'm sorry, 18 book. Yeah, thank you. So allowable Medicare, and I wasn't quite sure when you said that in your question. I have a couple of different answers. First of all, the allowable, the amount of Medicare that we took, it changes yearly, right? So I can't predict how many calls we're going to do today. I can't predict, what our statistics are going to be, other than we look at it historically. So I can give you per year, and I'll give you 2018. In 2018, the Medicare amount of reimbursement was 49%. Give me 1 second, I can give you, instead of you asking me all those questions
Yeah, I was
one
gonna
at a
say, I'm
time,
gonna be
I'll
asking
go
about
through,
Medicaid.
yeah. Yeah, give me just a second
Thank you.
here, and I'll go through what we would call the biller, or the payer mix.
And these are for 2016 or
The-
2018?
These are 18 numbers.
Okay.
So the, the payer mix for Delaware County, Muncie is Medicare, 49%, Medicaid, 26%, commercial insurance, 12%, and self-pay is 13%. Now, something that I wanted to bring to your attention, just because it seems relevant, is you used the word allowable, so I also brought what is the payment fee structure in 2019 for Medicaid, Medicare, and Blue Cross Blue Shield. So and I'll just stick to BLS because that's what you're asking me about.
Thank you.
BLS non-emergent transport for Medicare is $221.21, and emergent is $353.94. Then you can tack on a mileage fee of $7.55, and that's Medicare. Medicaid is significantly less. A BLS non-emergent, and these are coded, excuse me, these are coded emergent, non-emergent by the billing company and then submitted for payment to Medicaid, Medicare. That's how we do it. I would assume if you're using a,
Who determines emergent, non-emergent? Would that
So-
be dispatch or would that be?
no, well, I think they take the, how it is dispatched into consideration, but it has to do with what treatments and
Okay.
how the EPCR, or the run report that the emergency medical technician paramedic would write.
Okay.
So they say,
So basically, when your unit arrives on scene, they by their checklist on what they're doing to each, and, the patient, it could bump it up from a BLS to ALS, and that,
Sure.
and then you determine your cost through that.
we don't, we have a, yes, I guess to answer your question correctly, yes, we do. So it depends, and there are different, if you're talking ALS, they have ALS 1 and ALS 2, and that depends on, what the interventions are going to be. So if they're specific to, and I'm just going to give you a garden variety, a chest pain, a shortness of breath, something like that, and it would be an ALS 1 call, they have a specific charge for that. A cardiac arrest, rapid sequence intubation, something that is of what I would consider more serious nature would be ALS 2, and there's a little bit of an upcharge for that. So, does that answer your question?
Yes.
And I guess the quickest way to say it is it depends on what you write in your run sheet is how it will get billed. So it does come into play. They do review, like, was it a 911 call? How did they report it? And they review those types of things, but sometimes your calls will get down-coded, and then you're only available to get, the difference would be $95 for a BLS non-emergent, and it's $110 for an emergent, for Medicaid.
Who might down code?
So as, if it's deemed under the Medicaid standard that a toothache is not an emergency, then your billing company is required to downcode it.
Okay.
And that has to do with, that would be a question for the specific billing company, how they would do that.
Okay.
I can tell you that if they don't downcode those specific things, Medicaid or Medicare has lofty
They'll spit
penalties.
They'll spit it back.
You'll have to pay it back plus penalty.
Plus fines.
Yeah, so, and that's why, that's why we use the same billing service that Eskenazi or Indianapolis EMS uses. And that's, they do it for us all the time. So it's, the professional billers know the process.
All right. So then on to the next question, question 8. How much does Delaware County EMS,
Did he have to go down?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, let me
Yeah.
He didn't
keep
go the
going.
rest of
So,
the fees.
so allowable Medicaid is the 26%, 2018. BLS non-emergent is $95.84.
Okay.
And for an emergent BLS call, you can collect $110.84. And then BLS mileage is $3.31, and that's per mile, is what you can bill.
331? Okay.
And Mr. Rogers, I believe you said you had the Blue Cross Blue Shield?
I do.
Empowered.
So 14% is what I have. You have it uninsured, we would call it self-pay.
Okay.
But that's 14%. Private insurance is 12%, was 12% of the business that we did in 18. And as an example, 2019 Blue Cross Blue Shield fee structure for BLS non-emergent is $251 and emergent is $402. And they will pay $8.60 a mile. They are the only one, Blue Cross and Blue Shield, and this goes to another question that you'll ask me later in the list of questions, but they are the only ones that will do a treatment, no transport, meaning that you can collect some money if they have Blue Cross Blue Shield. But again, it depends on how it's coded, and there is a maximum. Nobody else, Medicaid, Medicare, other private insurances, very, very few of the Blue Cross, well, obviously, 12%, if they have specifically Blue Cross and not some other insurance provider, you could maybe collect a little bit, but it's a very minute when it comes to that.
If you were to answer a call and the client said, no, thank you, I'm not going to go, then there's no billing for that unless they have Blue Cross Blue Shield.
No, and it depends on what so we have one charge if we come to your house and say you're a diabetic and your blood sugar is low, and we treat you to raise your blood sugar, and we can essentially fix the problem. Or you're an asthmatic, and we need to give you a Duoneb breathing treatment, and we can fix that without having to take you to the hospital. We have a flat fee of $100.
Okay.
So that's what we charge the patients. Medicaid will not pay it. Medicare will not pay it. A lot of insurances won't pay it unless you transport them, but Blue Cross Blue Shield will pay that portion. And, it's 80-20. I mean, it depends on the policy.
Right. And so then, would that kind of translate into this next question of what you write off annually? If you charge the patient $100 and they have no, would that be one of your write-offs then?
It could be.
How much does Delaware County EMS write off annually?
About $5 million. In 2018, we wrote off $5,350,094.68. In 17, we wrote off $5,259,529.82. And in 16, $526,658.68. And I'll give you all. I'll give you all these numbers.
Okay.
Yeah, I can email you this as well because I know it's a lot of information.
Yes. And so you'll be providing that information to us where we can actually do that. Okay, I thought you had a question. Does Delaware County EMS utilize hard billing or soft billing?
Both.
Okay, and hard billing is collection.
So hard billing is collections and soft billing is write-off, and you have to do that. So if you want to participate in Medicare and Medicaid, okay, which you can tell is the biggest part of our business in this community. It's not that way in other communities, but it's fairly typical. If you want to participate in those programs, you have to sign off that you will write off something.
So there's a contract, there's actually a
There actually is, yes. So as an example, I can't send a Medicaid patient to collections. They won't, Medicaid, that's a Medicaid violation, and we could lose our Medicaid contract at that point and then not be able to collect anything on those.
Okay. All right. And so some of the clients that you have, and I'm talking obviously, I'm focusing on the city. Some of the clients you have would be sent to collections, some of them would be written off. Who do you use for collections?
So we use two different services. One is our billing company has a DBA that they do collections, and we call it MedBill. So I'm not sure what they use, but it's the same company. And on the collection side of the house, what happens is, and I'll just use an easy number. If we take you to the hospital and you owe me $100 for that trip, we pay 25% of what is collected, and that's the way we do it first. So you're not billed because you didn't pay, right?
Okay.
So Delaware County would get $75 of that, and then the Medbill Collections would get $25. I thought it was interesting that they said they were talking about Atlas, and we use Atlas too some. It's a far
ask that, thank
it's a far less percentage of what we do, because we have a contract with our billing company that says, hey, we want to work with people. We give them the opportunity to cut their bill in half if they'll pay so much by this, and so that's all written into the billing contract.
Okay.
And then we'll say, after 180 days, then it's going to go to collections if you don't communicate with us. Obviously, we'll try to recap what we can before we write it off. So we have payment options when it goes to there. Now, when it goes to Atlas, Atlas does not charge us anything to do it. What they do is they tack the 30% on to you. So if you owe me $100, when it goes to Atlas, you now owe them $130. You now owe me $130.
So if,
Collection fees.
Yeah, by statute, they can do it that way. It's legal, but that's how it's done at Atlas.
so our residents that don't have Medicaid, if we had to turn them over to collections, would end up paying
30% more.
30% more on their bills? Okay. All right. That's the next question. And do you know off the cuff what your collection rate is once the account has been turned over? What can we hope to see from Atlas?
Can I ask you a question? Do you remember what they told you that your billing percentage was? Do you guys remember?
That we would be
Yeah, the billing company that I want to say 5 or 6% is what they were.
5%, yes.
5%? Okay. Yeah, our billing service charges us 3.9%.
And who is your billing company?
Medbill in Indianapolis.
Okay.
Or actually, I guess maybe Fisher's.
All right, but back to that, a question, as far as what is the collection rate once the account has been turned over? From Atlas, sir.
You know what? I don't have any data from Atlas in front of me, but I can ask them for it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I don't have the Atlas information with me.
That's fine.
Like I said, it's a pretty small amount of business that we do with them, I think, in comparison to what we do with Medbill.
Okay. And so last year, actually in 2016, Delaware County EMS collected $3.4 million? Was that your,
No, well, the correct answer would be no. We collected $3,290,951.07, so you're close. I find it interesting that you would pick that year, because that's the best year we had ever had.
was the given?
The cost to the county was $3,216,643.67, which left the county a net in 2016 of $74,000. $74,307.40. So just as a comparison, if I can state it, in 2018, we collected $3,483,408.44. And then the county paid for EMS coverage $3,914,849.86 for a loss of $431,441.42.
Okay, so that falls more in line with what I saw from the other departments that are okay.
It's an ebb and flow, and so it depends on, there's a couple of factors that come in there, as well as, where we're at with supplies, where we're at with trucks, what are we, where are we at in the replacement?
Can the committee
Cycle.
get those totals, that data from you,
Yeah,
please?
yeah, absolutely.
All right, I will knock that question to you, all right. How often do you replace your ambulances?
Every year, we replace at least one truck every year. We use Braun, and Braun ambulances are probably the Cadillac of ambulances. They far surpass the safety regulations that are put into place. They were the first company that did rollover tests. They were one of the only ambulances that the box actually survived a crush from one of the Twin Towers at 9/11. So They apparently have that box still at the factory, but they've put out a bunch of data on their rollover test. And the reason I say that is because those boxes then are taken off the chassis and then remounted. So once we do the initial purchase, which is around $185,000, then we remount them, and you have a couple of options which will change the price point, but I would say probably in the 150 range. 140, if you're going to redo like upholstery and you need cabinet doors because these trucks are, in service 24/7, it just depends on what options that you're asking for. So you can go cheaper routes, but you get what you pay for. So that's why we choose. We've had great success with Brum. They remount like brand new ambulances. They do a fantastic job. They do the remounts in Van Wert, Ohio, so I don't have to send them to Florida or New York or New Jersey. So it's easier for us and
So
more.
basically, you buy a new chassis and you take the box and put it on a new chassis.
Yeah.
How many rotations is the chassis,
An ambulance,
or I mean, the box, I guess, I'm sorry.
the box itself, the Braun box is 100% made out of steel and aluminum. It has, like I said, you can always tell a Braun because it's got the hump in the top of the box, and none of the others are made that way. A lot of other ambulances, the boxes are made with plywood, and then they have a sheeting over top of them. These are all fabricated there in Van Wert. They're all welded. The whole cabinets, the whole 9 yards is metal. So we have gotten, I think, the oldest box in our fleet. Now, you have to understand, when they go back there, they get repainted, they strip it down to nothing, so you're just looking at the metal. But I think the oldest box in our fleet is maybe a 90, 91. They last a long time.
Okay. And so how much does it cost for you to purchase a fully stocked ambulance? I know that they don't come from...
Nobody sells them fully stocked.
Well, but from the moment you purchase the ambulance, and then you have to go through the wrapping and all that was described here, and then to be fully stocked with equipment and medications.
I don't know that I can put a price on it. I'll tell you why. You have a lot of options. So are you purchasing a hydraulic cot? Are you purchasing, they're actually electric, but people call them hydraulic. I know that's how they were referred to in your, in the plan. Are you purchasing a load system, which Indiana is one of the last states to implement, that has not yet implemented. I think there may be one or two other states that on any new purchase of vehicles, they're starting to come with this load system, which is an extra $40,000. Essentially, and that's to save the paramedic and EMTs' backs from doing all this lifting, and that's why we've gone to power cots. So if you're using that, you're going to spend more money. If you're purchasing a stair chair instead of a soft cot, you're going to spend significant amounts of money. So all of our stuff, like I said, you get what you pay for. So all of our trucks have stair chairs. That's a way to get people out of houses in a seated position downstairs. Essentially, one man can take somebody down a flight of steps with these. They make soft cots, and soft cots are essentially fabric that two people would have to pick up and carry. So you can spend $1,000 for a stair chair, or you can spend $40 for a soft cot.
Okay, all right. So basically, it would depend on what our department wanted to purchase. And okay, well then, so let's go. Did you have a question? I'm sorry, please.
My question is there any standards or guidelines, laws, and how you staff the ambulance, like say between a ALS with a paramedic in it, between a BLS and an EMT in it? There is
a standard. The state sets a standard. They also set a standard with regard to what you have to have in your ambulance. We far exceed that. I don't know. We've got Lucas 2 devices, which are automatic CPR machines. So we don't really do CPR. We haven't done CPR for a couple of years because of these machines. They're about $14,000 a piece. We have 3 of them. So if you want to buy those, that's an option. There is the standard set by the state to get certified, and then you get inspected, that they have a list of, and it's on the state's website, of what it is required to have in a BLS ambulance. So, and it, I mean, it's minute, like it goes down to you have to have 50 4x4s, you have to have so many vials of sterile water, you have to have so many abdominal bandages, you have to have, all that sort of stuff. So it tells you exactly what you have to have.
So there are two different standards, one,
There's an ALS standard and a BLS standard, and there's a requirement that's not in, so that's just for the truck, but there's also a requirement that if you are running an ALS ambulance, you have to have a paramedic that is, their partner is at least a level of an EMT.
Okay.
As far as a BLS truck goes, I don't think there is a standard, because I know a lot of the volunteer services will have a driver. We obviously don't do that. Everybody at the minimum when you first start with our service is you're a basic EMT. So if you ever think about going paramedic, then you have to have EMTs driving paramedics or dual paramedic trucks.
So then you brought up the checklist, or you brought up how often do they have to fill this out, the checklist to make sure that the ambulances are certified?
Every single day.
So every single shift they would have to inspect the,
We do a daily inspection sheet, and that can be reviewed by the state. If they get a complaint about us, then they will come in and look at our paperwork to make sure that it's in order and see that we have this. They can do surprise inspections and come in and say, hey, how many pediatric C-collars do you have? How many pediatric non-rebreathers or nasal cannulas or whatever? And if you don't have them, then they can shut you down. So we inspect our vehicles every day.
what is your annual budget for medical supplies per ambulance?
I can't break it down to per ambulance, because once they're stocked, they're stocked, and then we piecemeal it. But I can tell you that our annual budget for medical supplies is $192,000 or $16,000 a month.
And that's for how many ambulances do you have?
We have 9 transport trucks.
So 9 transport. And what was that number again, please, sir?
$16,000 a month or $192,000 a year.
Okay. All right. So it equals out to about 21,000, almost 21,500 per ambulance per year. Okay. What is your annual budget for fuel?
That one I'm going to have to look up. The appropriation in 2018 was $55,000. We had to go back for an additional appropriation of $20,000. We spent a total of $73,674.67 in 2018 for fuel.
For 9 ambulances?
Yep.
Okay.
We also have we have 2 paramedic squads, supervisor, battalion chief vehicles, that sort of thing. They're QRVs, quick response vehicles. So we have 2 of those, and then there's a couple other fleet vehicles that we have, but they don't run every single day.
So that covers the entire,
It covers the entire fleet, yeah.
all right, thank you. And what is your annual budget for ambulance maintenance?
This wasn't on your list of questions, but
I apologize.
that's okay. That's why I'm taking the time to look. So I have an equipment maintenance.
What is that? Because that was actually the next question.
Oh, okay. Equipment maintenance is $12,000 a year in 2018, and we spent $11,999.36, 64 cents shy of the whole $12,000.
And that's for all 9 ambulances?
No, that is just an equipment maintenance. So if a heart monitor zipper breaks,
But what I was saying was that covers the equipment on all 9 ambulances?
yes,
Okay.
yeah, but that's not the vehicle repair.
Right, right.
This is just equipment on the vehicle, yeah.
Right. Thank you. And so that was 12,000 for the year?
Yes.
For 9, okay. And then the maintenance on the ambulances themselves? So that's about,
Here for a second. Excuse me just a second.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
Average of $1,300 per ambulance for equipment maintenance.
Equipment maintenance.
This is for,
That's the
for
contract.
pen care.
That's the
That's for pen
contract.
care.
Okay, I misspoke. I was looking at a wrong line item.
Fine.
So we have the $12,000 is a contract with Physio Control, and that is the company that, the parent company for Stryker, which is who our cots are done by, and also our heart monitors. And we have a service agreement with them. So obviously, we're dealing with heart monitors and shocking people, and we want to make sure that those things, so we have they must pass a test 100% every day. If they're not 100%, then they come off the line when they're checked in the morning, and then physio will come fix them. That's what that $12,000 is for.
Okay, so that's the service.
Yes, yeah, that's a service contract.
And is that a flat fee? Do you know if that's a flat fee per ambulance or is, I'm sorry.
1 second. Oh, yeah. Not included, my office manager reminded me that we pay $500 a month for a cellular service, which looks like cell phones, but it's not. It is the cellular service for the heart monitors, so we can send that data to not only the hospital, but it also automatically goes into our EPCRs. So you don't have to punch in everything you see to your report. Via Bluetooth, it goes to your reporting software in the tablet that's in the truck, and then it can also be seen at the hospital.
Is that the same thing that was referred to the other night when Ms. Clark said that they were doing Bluetooth with their heart monitors? So that would be,
I don't.
Okay, that's fine.
It depends on what depends on what heart monitor they're looking at.
I'm sorry.
But it's a possibility. Our tablets are our MDTs, mobile data terminals, so we get dispatch information from them, and then they also run our EPCR or our patient care report, and so they're intertwined, and to get the information from dispatch, you have to have a cellular connection, so they have what they call Gobi cards in them.
and so that is a $500 a month contract to have those Bluetooth monitors for their heart?
Yes, and it's a Verizon contract.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm dancing around your question
No, you're
here.
fine. It's a lot.
You were asking me about vehicle repair.
Yes, sir.
We budgeted in 2018 $30,000 for vehicle repair. We made an appropriation and we had to make an extra appropriation and we spent $44,078.60. And that's pretty typical because of the breakdowns. That 30,000 just doesn't go as far as it used to, and that's what our maintenance budget, vehicle repair budget has been for at least the last 5 years that I've been the director.
Okay,
I have a really quick question.
go right ahead.
Of that maintenance cost, that does include the 2 paramedic vehicles and the other vehicle that you said you had that doesn't run a lot?
The vehicle maintenance? Yes, yeah, that's for our entire fleet.
Right, that's for the
Yes.
entire fleet, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we spent $44,000 for the entire fleet.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And so what is the average lifespan of your equipment?
Depends on if they take care of it or not, to be honest with you. So ambulances usually get re-chassied about every 5 years. So we're on a regular rotation. It's just like any other car. We've had some that are just duds, and you get 3 years out of them. You might get 90,000 miles out of them. I would say we start looking to replace the chassis at about 120,000 miles, just because they're hard. They're hard 120,000 miles.
This is comparable to our police cars, correct? Okay. All right. And so then the heart monitors and things like that, would that just be, we heard the other night that they could be replaced immediately if they're wonky, or they could last 5 or so years? Is that
I would say, I mean, depending on what you get, you get what you pay for, right? So if you spend the money, and our heart monitors are $50,000 a piece. So if you drop one of ours, it's gonna pass the inspection because they're built for that. If you buy a cheaper one, they're just not. So
Would it be possible to get a copy of your price list of how much your equipment costs? Could we get that from you? Thank you. All right.
you write that down.
Sh-
I can try. I don't do the ordering.
was nodding.
She was not-
Okay,
One
do?
shaking their head, the other
Perfect.
one.
Is
that's
that-
why I brought her with me.
How often is transport refused? Circling back to
So-
the question.
From our EPCR, I can do some data extraction and percentages.
And again, concentrating within the city,
I can't do that, so that's the problem. I can't tell you specifically because the way it tracks is by zip code.
Okay,
And if, you may have a 47303 zip code, but you might live by the reservoir. So I can just do it by the zip code tracking. I can do it by truck, I can do it by station, but I can't, because we are a countywide service, I can't break it down into specifically where this was called, what it was done. Now, I will tell you this, I can contact GIS, I can get with the IT department, and then I can ask them if they can geocode every single call in the city, and then we can extract the run number, and then I could run through those, but I'm talking about 20,000 calls.
wow. You know, that would be interesting to see what kind of calls we can expect to have within our city limits and how many are Medicaid and Medicare. I mean, is there a way that we can get that information?
well, if you-
Asking too much, I would just like to see that for our own records to see.
I can't
what-
tell you specifically, how it was billed, because there's no bridge between billing and geomapping.
Okay.
But I can tell you how much, through our payer mix and through our billing company, I can probably tell you how much we make on Medicaid, Medicare, private insurance, those, yeah, I can ask for that data. And they could give it to me
Would you mind doing this?
by year, sure.
Thank you.
I'm not doing anything tomorrow.
You don't have to do it right away, sorry. I realize that you're doing that as a courtesy, and I appreciate it, but that would be very helpful for us to see as we go forward with these decisions.
I understand.
What types of annual certification is required by EMTs to maintain their licensure?
Basic EMTs need 34 hours of continuing education units, and that includes specific skill assessments, and then they also need 6 hours of audit and review from the medical director. Now, that's an every 2-year certification, and if they want to go beyond that and become National Registry, then you not only certify with the state of Indiana, but also the National Registry. I will tell you this, that I think all EMT courses have gone to National Registry testing. Yeah, so paramedics did a long time ago, so it all is the National Registry standard. Advanced, I'll just give it to you here, the advanced EMTs require 34 hours plus 10 extra hours of course-related lecture and 12 hours of audit and review in 2 years. Paramedics require 48 hours of specific CEUs and 24 hours of additional in-service that is mandated in certain courses. And they also must have advanced cardiac life support certification, pediatric advanced life support certification, pre-hospital trauma life support certification, and there are specific categories of instruction regulated by the state and National Registry for paramedics.
Okay. Of that, those certifications, do you have someone on your staff that is able to provide those certifications, where they would?
We pay a training officer who's a primary instructor for training in-house.
Okay, thank you. How many EMS stations are within Muncie city limits?
Oh, you got specific on me.
I did.
So here's how I answer that question. We have 4 stations with Muncie addresses. 3 are inside Center Township, and 2 are inside the city limits of Muncie.
Okay.
They are all within close proximity, and they are strategically located.
Thank you. How are they affected by the railroad in regards to their abilities to respond and their response times?
So regarding railroad tracks, I won't say that it's not a problem in Muncie because everybody knows that it is.
Absolutely.
However, It's less of a problem for EMS than it is the fire department because of the size of the trucks, okay? Our trucks, and not all of the fire trucks, but the majority of the fire trucks are obviously much bigger. That being the case, we avoid trains by taking alternate routes, such as the McCullough Boulevard underpass, which we do fit underneath. So if we're going to Whiteley for a call, they're coming from the number 1 downtown station, they cut through the park, and the train doesn't stop them. If there's a west track that runs on the west side that crosses Tilton, we can cut through Beech Grove Cemetery. There's an underpass in Beech Grove Cemetery that the ambulances will fit under. Now, again, that's if Beech Grove is open during the day. So if it's after, I think, a certain time period at night, we can't cut through because the gates are locked. So do we wait? Occasionally, yes, we do. There's also the MLK overpass. There's the bypass to the east and the underpass on Madison. So does it take us a little extra time if there's a train? Yes, there is. Do we wait on them sometimes? Yes, we do. But as far as getting around them, can we get around them? Yes. And it's one of the reasons that we have our stations where they're at, so there are different capabilities for those, to get different places.
Do you have any data on the run times and the responses of the different areas of our city?
So again, it's broken down into zip code, and I can give you that, but you're going to get county-wide, or you're going to get zip code-wide information. I can give you some average.
And where these reports that you're giving us, where did those come from?
They're generated from our patient care reporting and dispatch. No, the sheets with the graphs on it. I don't have it in front of me, and we may
That's
not.
okay.
We may not have, but I can provide it with you. I can tell you our average response time countywide is right around 6 minutes.
Is there any area within those zip codes, and hopefully you can tell me more of the city of Muncie, is there any area of the city of Muncie that consistently receives a slower response time?
Consistently? No.
Consistently, not anecdotally, but consistently, and do you have data to verify that?
I will let you make that determination whether you think they are or not, and I'll provide you the data. How about that? I don't.
I understand. If you,
I have my opinion, but I don't want to give you opinion. I want to give you fact.
I appreciate that. So you can provide that data for us, sir?
Yes.
All right. What will the Delaware County EMS charge the Muncie Fire Department Basic Life Support per intercept for intercept fees for paramedics?
That is not necessarily a question that I can answer because the city of Muncie falls outside the parameters of what we have in ordinance, and that would probably have to be entertained by the elected officials with an interlocal agreement. So I can't tell you. I can tell you what the standard is. Just like the newspapers reported, if we don't have a contract and you're outside of Delaware County, you're getting $500 bill for, and that's not paid by the patient, that's paid by the service. Same with if we have a contract and you're from outside Delaware County. For example, Chesterfield, we have a contract with them. We charge them $200 every time we assist them on a call and take a patient with them to the hospital. We bill them, they pay us specifically.
Okay. And so if we have a situation where we're not able to charge the patient,
We still bill you.
I'm sorry?
We still bill you.
Okay. Okay. And then, lastly, in addition to you as the EMS director, does Delaware County EMS employ a quality control officer and an administrative assistant?
Yes. My administrative assistant is sitting here with me. I have a deputy chief of operations, deputy director of operations, who oversees the 3 shift supervisors, and they have 2 lieutenants. We call it a QC process, quality control, and they audit every single call every single day, so they're doing it throughout the day. And then it goes to billing. If they get kicked back, which is what we're trying to keep that from happening, if bad information is pushed through, then it gets kicked back and we waste time, with the process again. So our QC process is done 24 hours a day by the on-duty supervisors.
So having someone specifically assigned to do that duty helps with the billing?
Yes,
Being
absolutely,
able to capture them, okay.
100%. We have somebody specifically assigned to order supplies that doesn't do QC. We have somebody specifically assigned to do fleet maintenance. It's a little bit like eating the elephant.
Are those all full-time positions?
Yes.
And can you give me an average salary for those positions? Just, I know, and that was
60,000,
each?
unfortunately, except for Megan, who makes about 35.
Sorry, Megan. Okay. Do you have any questions, sir?
Yeah, I got a couple questions. Could you get us the numbers on how many times that you've got mutual aid from other departments out, besides Delaware County EMS, whether, Albany, Daleville,
What year do you want?
last year be fine. And I guess a follow-up to that too is, do they, I know you said you give them a certain amount of money per year. Do they receive a fee when they assist you on top of what you, or is,
So if they come in and take a patient, do they get anything? They have the ability then to bill that patient, and they take the fees for transporting that patient. In 2018, and I have it broken down by month and the total year. The total, so this is the total number of times that we said, can you stand by for us? We want you to stand by because all our trucks are busy, okay? All of our 6 trucks or 7 trucks or 5, we have between 5 and 7 trucks a day. They're all busy at some point or another. And last year, we requested mutual aid 513 times. Now, I don't want to mislead you, because Albany was 112, Eaton was 304, Daleville was 97. So the Albany and the Daleville numbers are very, very similar. And the reason for that is they came in and just primarily did standby. So with regard to Eaton, they have a bariatric unit, and we will call them about 100 times a year to help transport bariatric patients. And so that's why that number is elevated. I can tell you, and I actually reached out to them, and they gave me the exact number. I'm sorry, 2018, we toned them 305 times. They transported 210 patients, and of those, about 100 of them were bariatric patients. Standbys for non-transports was 95. So they didn't do anything 95 of those times we called them. For 19, we've toned them 36 times, transported 33, and they've stood by 3 times. So we've significantly decreased it this year, and that's just an ebb and flow thing because I can't control when people call 911.
do you have a dollar figure on how much, I guess we'll bundle them all together to make it easier, how much went out to the other departments that, or they bill, or do you bill?
I don't have that data. That would have to come from them.
Any other questions, sir?
I mean, we could,
Can you get us that?
I'm sorry?
Can you get us that?
I could try. I can ask the other services if they have that
What
data.
other services, and I can contact?
Albany, Eaton, and Daleville.
I'll do that. I'll find out. I don't want to have you to, okay.
Thank you.
And then, Mr. Marshall, do you have any other questions right now?
I have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
Of the 3 stations in Center Township, how many total ambulances?
3. So what happens is, if everybody comes to work, we have 7. So that means that puts 5 ambulances inside Center Township. But people have vacation, we're in vacation season, so right now we're doing about 5 a day, and 3 of those are in Center Township. But if we have an extra truck, then they always go to the downtown station, so we'll have extra trucks there.
Okay.
And I have one series of follow-up questions. So we heard the other night that you can bill at an ALS rate and a BLS rate. Can our basic life support program bill at an ALS rate if we do have a paramedic intercept and provide those services?
If you have an interlocal agreement, then I would say that that can be done, yes, because then we would provide our EPCR to your billing company or your, what happens is if, and I'll use Albany as an example. If we go out and the paramedics meet an Albany BLS truck, then I give that run sheet to the Albany billing person, or their, I don't deal with their billing company, but I deal with their person. So their administrative assistant gets that run, and then they can bill at an ALS rate through their billing company. But they have to provide, we have to give them our run sheet has to meet the standard, and then they can bill, and that's why we bill them
Okay.
specifically.
And so then to follow up with that, we heard the other night that, and this is just spitballing, we heard the other night that the ALS rate, because we could set our own fees, that Muncie Fire Department BLS plans to set fees so that it will cover the intercept rate, the intercept fees, so we could potentially, depending on the interlocal agreement or the contract that we sign with you, we could have an ALS call being up to $500 more, depending on what you set as your fees. We were told the other night.
Okay, so let me clarify, you're,
Let's hear.
maybe. And the reason I say maybe is because if it's a Medicaid patient, which the demographics are here, the majority of the Medicaid patients are going to be in inner
That
city.
is my concern.
Okay? You can only bill what Medicaid says is allowable. So, as an example, do you have the color sheet?
So while you're getting that, if you bill the Medicaid rate, which is only so much allowable, will you reduce your intercept fee?
That's a question for the commissioners.
Okay,
I mean, I don't set the fees.
okay. So we could actually end up losing money with every Medicaid call
Yeah,
if the intercept fee is at
Absolutely.
$500.
So Medicaid, so Medicaid ALS fee, doesn't matter what you're doing, is $160. That's the total you can bill, plus ALS mileage of $4.41 a mile.
$60 to bill, that's the maximum, and then how much for mileage? I'm sorry?
$4.41.
So
So if our fee's $500, you're losing money.
if your fee's $200, we're losing money.
It's quite astute.
All right. I have no more questions for you. I appreciate you coming in and trying to shine some light on this. As we go through and kind of discombobulate this information that you gave, because that's a lot and it's very technical, if we have follow-up questions, would you be available to answer those via email?
Yes.
Thank you.
I want to say one thing, some of the information that I'm going to send you, just as within our budget, you can see the red lines?
Yes, sir?
Those are accounts that we had to go get extra appropriations for in
And you
18.
will be giving us.
So, yeah, I'll send this to you, but you got to know what you're looking at. Why is it red? And that's why it's red, is because we fell short in those budget lines.
For additional.
And all the reds are additional appropriations,
In the
so.
middle of the page, what is that line item that you had to get that additional appropriation for?
Well, I'll just read them to you.
Well, you don't have to read them all, I'm just want to,
Well, you ought to know what you're getting yourself into.
I will when I read the thing, but I'm, okay.
All right, you want to know what the middle of the page was?
I'm just,
Billing and medical supplies.
okay. How much did you originally budget?
For billing,
Yes, sir.
$153,000.
And you had to go get an additional appropriation of what?
We spent $156,770.07.
Okay,
And mind you, that's at that 3.9% rate,
right,
not 5.
all right. Thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome. Thanks, Meg.
Mr. Singleton?
Get up. Good evening.
Good evening. We have a few questions for you. And we'll just dive right in. Are there areas in Muncie which consistently receive slower response times than other areas of our city?
Again, that's difficult to ascertain.
Okay. I
Depend-
just know from a dispatch perspective, if you could give us that information.
Again, it's difficult to give you a number because it all depends on what agencies are busy,
Okay.
what units are unavailable. Like we've talked about before, dispatching is sort of like a chessboard. You have to keep pieces continually moving, and that can greatly affect dispatch time, run times.
I'll ask you.
We do have a standard.
Okay.
Our goal is to take the call, get enough information, and get it dispatched within a minute or less. We need two things to get that call dispatched. What's wrong and where are you at? And then we can get somebody out the door, whether it's police, fire, or ambulance, and we can get them started that way, and then we continue to gather more information.
Okay. All right, and so unfortunately, we really can't have hard data on that. Will the termination of the 911 interlocal agreement affect how Muncie Fire Department BLS is dispatched?
At this point, again, I don't know, because number one, I've not seen a plan on how we're going to dispatch them.
Would that plan come between a collaboration between you and Chief Bell then, or?
Yes.
Okay.
And then I also have a medical director, and that medical director will have to approve of whatever plan we dispatch. So will the termination affect us? I'm going to say yes, it will affect us. The biggest effect will be, the question is the city going to continue paying their portion of the 911 service, or is the county going to have to absorb that cost? And that's an unknown for everybody at this point.
Okay. So will we need to enter into a written agreement then, obviously, with the 911 call center to, as far as our dispatching and how that procedure will set into place? Or is that a question for the commission?
That's probably for the commissioners, but yes, we'll have to have something in writing about what they want from us and how they expect us to provide that service.
Okay. So will modifications of the dispatch system software be required?
Yes.
And then modifications of the card system?
Well, we don't use the flip card system. We use the flip card system as a backup. Ours is all computerized. We use the emergency medical dispatch software, like most modern dispatch centers use. It's all computerized, where you get an address, you start building the call, you put in nature codes, what's wrong, police, fire, and then it starts recommending units. Yes, that will have to be adjusted, rewritten to include, if the city's plan is to put ambulances in different locations, yes, that'll have to be rewritten.
Okay, and so then the modification of that software, will that have a cost associated with it?
At this point, I can't answer that. Yes, there will be some hours that will be spent by staff doing that. How that's paid for and how that's billed, that'll be between probably the commissioners and the city.
Okay, all right. That would be, and my next question was, would you be charging the city for that fee? So we will put that. And then last fall, I observed a shift at the dispatch, and I noted that the dispatch operates with a team fielding calls. And so we had a team answering Muncie Police Department, a team answering the Sheriff's Department, and then Muncie Fire and EMS. And so if we established a Muncie Fire Department basic life support program system, would then you need to have another team to dispatch that? Do you know if that will you have to hire additional staff to accommodate dispatching our firefighters?
Again, that's an unknown because I have no idea what they are going to expect.
Okay.
There's lots of things that I have come up with as cost unknowns. Something as simple as what radio frequency are they going to
That was my next question, actually.
dispatch on?
Okay. So following that was actually my next question, is will you have to purchase a new radio channel for Muncie Fire Department basic life support?
According to my radio guy, we all have radio guys, we all have guys that do that special stuff. We have no free channels. Every channel that we have in the center is being utilized by someone. So the two options would be either someone has to give up a channel if fire-based EMS wants to dispatch on their own channel, or if they want a new channel, you'd have to go out and purchase one, which that's somewhere in the $70,000 range through getting these certificates and approved and, dealing with the license fees through FCC. So yes, there's potentially a cost there.
Okay, and so I guess my whole line of questioning with that is trying to find out what kind of cost would be passed on to the city if we were to undergo this transition. And unfortunately, I don't think that we can have any of those answers until we actually know what we are looking at.
I cannot give you hard answers because I don't know the plan.
And so unfortunately, there's expenses that we don't know that we could incur without.
There's the potential to have separate toning equipment. Toning equipment goes at each station. EMS has toning equipment, the fire has toning equipment, and I'm going to assume that they don't want to dispatch, even if there's an ambulance in a fire station, they don't want to use the same tones. So there's a cost for toning equipment. If there's a new frequency that's either purchased or somebody gives up a frequency, then you have hundreds and hundreds of radios that are throughout the city and the county that would have to be reprogrammed. Because for interoperability reasons, that radio allows us to communicate with every agency. There's a channel somewhere on there that we can switch to and everyone can talk to one another. Or in the dispatch center, we can actually combine channels where different agencies can actually freely talk back and forth.
Okay.
So yes, there's
Potential for cost, but we just don't know what they would be until we have a plan in place.
exactly.
Okay. Mr. Marshall, do you have any questions for Mr. Singleton?
No, me?
All right.
I'm good.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right. I would like to thank everyone who participated in this process. The committee appreciates your time and your patience and your willingness to come in and answer questions. We will be taking everything into consideration as far as the information gathered today and at Friday's meeting and reporting back to the council as a whole. Thank you very much. Have a great night.